Good evening, everyone. On tonight's webinar, we will be focusing a bit on the short-term your CFD trading. So, first of all, my email address is on the screen, Karel@sharetrackin.com. If you do have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Also note that this would be my last webinar for this year. We will continue again. The next webinar should then be on the 8th or the 9th of January. That should be the next webinar then of me again. So first of all, I'm going to log in. Okay. Once I'm logged in, I will see here that I get to my investment dashboard. I can also go and have a look at how my trader dashboard is doing. Currently, I can see that I do own SSW. SSW is delivering a profit of 598 Rand. So it is delivering a profit currently. And as long as the share is still growing, I would keep the share on my simulation. So for us to find a share to buy, I would go to analysis, I would go to stocks, I would wait for it to open, I would go to my additional advisors. Now most of you would know the additional advisors. You would know that you use a long and a stochastic, or that you use a long and a RSI to indicate signals. So that can be used for shorter term trading, but ideally we created a tab called Sharetrackin 2020 that I would use especially for that, for the CFD trading. So if I do click on that, automatically it will load it. So just in short, the Sharetrackin 2020 will more or less give you signals and tell you which direction you can trade. Okay. Remember, on a CFD, we can trade in both directions. In other words, I can make money while the share is growing. And on the other hand, I can also make money when the share is falling. I do recommend that if you are not too sure about the long and short, in other words, making money on the upside as well as the downside of a share, I would recommend that you go to education, webinars, your live webinar archive, and go and watch video number 155 and 157 that explains the CFDs quite in detail. After that, you would exactly know what a CFD is, exactly how it works, and what is the long exactly and what is the short exactly, and how do you enter those positions. So I inserted the Sharetrackin 2020. First of all, it gives me the company's code. I must always remember each company on the JSE has its own unique 3-letter code linked to its name. Then I have the company's name. I have the closing price of that share. If it's during a trading day, it is the previous trading day's data. If it's at the end of a trading day, it is that day's trading data. And I would find the volume. So volume stands for the number of shares that traded hands during a trading day. So in other words, the volume would be the number of shares that was bought and sold in one day. You would also remember that if you do the long and stochastic or the RSI and the stochastic, underneath your volume, you must insert greater than 100,000. When using the Sharetrackin 2020, you do not need to insert that because it's already inserted. So that filter is already running in the background. All that I do is I would go to the Share T 2020. It gives me two options. It tells me hold and it will tell me open. Now I am looking for a position that I can open. So ideally I would type in open there and immediately it pops out 5 shares that I can buy now, or that shows a buy currently. I would also note it gives me a direction, in other words, a long that is making money on the shares upside, or a short that's making money on the shares downside. Furthermore, from here on, I would go and select the share. So let's say we are going to go to IAP. So I click on the share and I would go to chart IQ, because even though it tells me here I must open a long position, or I can open a long position, I must still go and view my charting and do my analysis on that share, because it doesn't help me not doing any analysis on the share. So I would open up my charting. My charting would look like this. I would have my 200-day moving average, or if you are trading CFDs, you can also use a 50-day moving average, because you want to see what happened with the share more recently. Okay, so more recently I can see the share went down. Also, I have my RSI and I have my stochastic, which I would note that both my RSI and stochastic on the right hand side has a 20 as well as an 80 line. Okay, so your RSI and stochastic works as follows. Your 0 to 20 area on both of them would be seen as the oversold area. In other words, this would be the time when you want to buy, because the share is at its lowest. For example, if I look there, my RSI came in the first time and showed me I can buy. But if I look at my stochastic didn't quite yet give me a buying signal. My stochastic showed me the share is still busy dropping. Up until there, where my stochastic crossed, and from there on the share went upwards. Then I get to my 20 to 80 area, which is this big area on both of them in the middle. This is seen as my holding area. And this would not likely be an area to buy in unless your stochastic is showing you at a low point that you can buy, even though it's above the 20 line. You must always keep it as close as possible to the 20 line though. And then I have my 80 to 100 area. This is more likely the area where you would sell the share, because your overbought area is seen as your expensive area. And at that point, that share is at its highest. And I can even look here. After it crosses there, it starts to go down. If I look at more recently, I would note that today the share went positive. My RSI did go up, indicating that the share is growing. My stochastic did confirm it's busy crossing. So this could be a share to buy as a CFD on the upward side. So now I would close my charting. I would say buy shares. And first of all, I want to select my CFD account. Okay. Underneath my CFD account, I get the share code. I get the company's name. I get the last traded price. I get the date on which the transaction is happening. Max you can afford to buy. In other words, the money I still have left in the account to spend on shares. Number of shares to trade. How many shares do I want to buy? The comment. The reason for me buying that share. Leverage. Okay. Each brokerage firm, whether it's Standard Bank, whether it's FNB, whether it's Nedbank, whether it's IG, whether it's plus 500, it doesn't matter. But each brokerage firm that you are going to use to trade live has different leverages. In other words, it's actually called a gearing ratio. So what happens is IG should give you a ratio of about 1 to 10. In other words, for each 1,000 Rand I put in, IG will go and make it 10,000 Rand. Okay? It can still differ from share to share. And my brokerage fees could be a bit higher than Standard Bank. Then on Standard Bank, they would give me a gearing ratio of 1 to 7. In other words, I would put in 1,000 Rand and they would make it 7,000 Rand. Again, it can differ from share to share. FNB would give you a ratio of 1 to 5. So for each 1,000 Rand I put in, they would make it 5,000 Rand. Keeping that in mind, I would rather look at a Standard Bank or a IG for the reason they give me better gearing ratios. So let's use a general example and say, okay, 7, we are going with Standard Bank. So I would insert my leverage at 7. Automatically, it will recalculate your margin. In other words, your margin would be that of the total cost, you are going to pay 14.29%, rounding that big number off at a 14.29%. So now I can go and say, okay, if I go and buy 4,000 shares, I could see that this is quite a lot. So 4,000 shares requires a 57,720 Rand as a total cost. So of that 57,000, I am paying 8,245 Rand. I am starting with a startup capital of 5,000, so I need to bring that down quite a lot. So let's say I want to buy 1,500 shares. It's still quite a lot. It's about 3,000 Rand. Let's say 900. Then it's starting to look better at 1,800, which gives you a total cost of 12,000. So how it works is the total cost is what 900 shares of IAP costs at 14 Rand 43 cents. But because I'm doing a CFD and I'm getting a gearing ratio of 127, I'm only paying 14.29% of the total cost, which gives me the margin that I must pay of 1,855 Rand. Just by paying that amount, I am going to make the gains as well as losses as if that share is worth 12,987 Rand. Okay. Because the share is going to go up, I'm going to open a long position. So I say open long position. But I forgot to fill in a comment. So I would just say that my RSI and my stock shows buy. And that's all I need to fill in. And then I would say open long position. It says here position successfully open. So now if I close it and I go to my dashboard and I go to my trader dashboard, there's IAP. From here on, if I want to sell the share, I could just go to action and I could say close position. That is if it's not hanging currently. And automatically, if I go close position, I just fill in the comment, click on close position again, and from there on, I can work with the share. And that would be the session for tonight. If you do have any questions, please feel free to stay behind. For those of you that's going to leave the webinar right now, enjoy your evening and happy festive season to all of you. Hope to speak with you next year again. Okay, bye.